Hi, this is Diane Lovetobake on YouTube. And what we're going to make are coconut apple bars. And these are easy to make and very quick to bake, and they really are delicious. I do have a frosting that I put or glaze on top of them. I'll talk about it, but I'll actually have a video on it, and I'm hopefully going to put it on for tomorrow. And I'll explain more, as we go along. But let's get started first. What you're going to start off with is butter, and I've had it at room temperature. Now, if you don't have butter, you don't like butter, and you have margarine, it can be used, and it'll still be a very good tasting coconut bar. It really will. I took this butter, and it's 3/4 of a cup, and I cut it into small pieces. Now, I no longer put the recipes below the videos, below my video, and I'll explain that in a little bit to come. Next I'm going to do is just to cream it and break it up. Now, you certainly can use your hand mixer for this. In fact, you could even mix it in a large mixing bowl, with a spoon or a spatula. Now, once you break that up and you cream it, and it's probably going to take you, half a minute or whatever, you're going to beat in granulated sugar, and you need 1 cup. Now, I'm going to warn you about the sound of my mixer. And stay with that at least for a minute or two till it's nice and smooth and creamy. I'm moving it along due to the video. The next thing that you're going to be putting in is applesauce. And you need 2 cups of applesauce. Now, this can be whatever brand that you prefer. In fact, you can use the applesauce unsweetened, or you can use the sweetened. It's really up to you. I prefer to use the unsweetened, but you might like the sweetened or with cinnamon. Yeah, we're going to put cinnamon in this, but especially if you like extra cinnamon, you can get the applesauce. I'm sure in your cinnamon in your applesauce. So we're going to put those 2 cups in this. Now, hopefully I'm going slow enough that if you do want this recipe, you can, jot everything down, okay? So let's blend that together. Warn you about the sound. To do that in case especially if I'm mixing a little bit higher, it catches any of the little splatter. The next thing you're going to put in is 1 egg at room temperature and beat that in. And I'm going to raise my speed, but I'm going to put my towel over this just to prevent it from splattering. Okay, now I did that on a higher speed. I normally wouldn't do that, but I'm doing it because of the video. The next thing, let's get our dry ingredients together. The next thing is going to be 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're also going to be putting in 2 teaspoons, yes, 2 teaspoons of baking soda. We're also going to be adding, half a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to be putting in a quarter of a teaspoon of cinnamon. And I'm even a little generous. I put a little extra, but a quarter of a teaspoon would be good, especially if you're going to use the applesauce that has cinnamon in it too. But you know, you can always add a little extra cinnamon. It really enhances, I think, these coconut apple bars. And I just stirred it in a little bit with my little whisk, and then I'm going to slowly add this to the wet. Raise my speed a little bit, so I'll warn you about the sound. Okay, it bears repeating that of course I'm using a higher speed than I normally would. And take whatever time it takes you, whether it's 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, really depending on, you know, if you're using your stand-up mixer or your hand mixer. So, you know, it depends on whatever speed. And I'm just going to take my spatula here and clean up the sides. Make sure I got to the bottom, because it tends to, the paddle tends to kind of miss that very bottom sometimes. Now you don't want to overbeat it either, but you do want to make sure that it's combined. Now when you, just mixing this up, oh, the smell of the cinnamon and the apples, oh, it's terrific. And then when you're baking it, your whole kitchen will smell so good. All right, and the batter will look like that, okay? The next thing, of course, is you need a pan, a baking pan or sheet, and generally I use a 15 by 10. If you want to use a little bit smaller, if you want to do a 13 by 9, you know, the bars will come out a little thicker. But I like them, and I'll show you in a moment what they look like in the 15 by 10. Okay, heavily grease it or use your parchment paper, and then just put all that nice batter in your pan. I want to get that all out. You certainly don't want to waste product because of the money that you spend for this and then the time that you put into baking. You want to get it all out of there. And then just, you know, spread it out into your pans. Make sure that you get those corners real well. And just even it out as much as you can. Now you're going to bake this at 375 degrees, and it could take you up to 30 to 35 minutes. It really depends on your oven, and as you know, most ovens set up so differently, so you'll know your oven. And but keep an eye on it. I start really checking mine at about 25 minutes. Because you don't want to dry these bars out. You want them to have that nice moisture left in them due to the you know, the applesauce. And they're a great tasting bar because of the butter, and then because of like I said, the apples. Oh, they just bake up so good. All right, so again, once again, 375, it could take you to 30 to 35 minutes. Check it with your toothpick or your cake tester, you know, to see that when you pull it out, it looks dry, but you don't want to over bake them. Now I'm going to rinse my hands real quickly here, because I was handling raw egg. All right. And I'm going to show you what they look like once they are done. Now on these particular, this is a 15 by 10. Again, if you want to use two small baking pans or a 13 by 9, feel free. And I did put, I call it more of a frosting than a glaze. I will put the recipe on it. It's so easy. I mean, you can make it in a saucepan, or I make it actually in the microwave with brown sugar and half and half powdered sugar and butter. Oh, it really tastes to me almost like a caramel, a brown sugar caramel frosting or glaze. And you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. I like mine a little thicker so it becomes more of a frosting than a glaze. But you can see how nice that came out. And then before that frosting or glaze hardens, then I just cover it with the sweetened coconut. Now you can use your unsweetened coconut too if you prefer. As far as the amount, to be honest with you, I just judge it by my eye, but I would say probably it's, you know, a little less than a half a cup or something like that of what I put on top. So let's grab a knife and cut into it. And I will grab a plate so we can plate it. And now you can cut the bars however big or small that you want. That's going to be up to you, and then how many you get out of this. Okay, but you can see that's a nice portion right there. If you feel that's too big, then of course cut them in half. If you make them about half of what that is for each one, I have actually gotten sometimes about 40 bars out of them. But again, if you think that's too small, you know, just cut them larger. You'll know how many that you want. And I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to try to show you how moist this is when I squeeze on it. I don't know if you can see how delicate the flake is. It just comes away. They melt in your mouth. They're not heavy. They're not dense. They're really between a cookie and a cake, and yet they have that chew to them, you know, so they are moist, they are chewy. They're not dry at all or real hard. Again, they resemble a cake and a cookie together. These bars are really great with a glass of cold milk or a cup of tea or a great cup of hot coffee. They are just delicious. And I will put on that frosting glaze. As I said, I will put it on tomorrow if you're interested. If not, you can also just make up a powdered sugar with milk or water and put a glaze over these, and they're delicious too if you don't want to wait for the video recipe on this glaze or frosting. Okay, now again, I'm really sorry that I don't put the recipe below, and I'm not alone on this. But it's due to so many people pinning and posting and taking my work, putting it on other sites, that it's just not worth it anymore. And I would be really tell you, I'm so frustrated that when I always tell people, if you like this recipe, leave a comment, because I like to hear from you. And when I see my work and see your comments or see your questions and I can't answer them, it really is so frustrating. So please, watch me solely on YouTube. That is the only place that I put my videos, Diane Lovetobake. It is the only place. And if you do start watching them on another site, then you know that they are not me, and that work does not belong to them. It belongs to me. And yet I know I'm not alone on that, but I do like to mention that to give you a reason when you write to me and say, Where's the recipe? Well, that's why I took the time and told you, okay? So if you try again this recipe, well, write to me and let me know, or your comments or your questions. I'll try to answer in a very timely fashion. If you're so inclined and you'd like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. Or like the video or ring the bell. I can't thank you enough for watching Diane Lovetobake on YouTube. So stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.